Hello everyone, and welcome to Explore the Beat. We're so glad to have you here. My name's Sarah. Work with Building Beats, a nonprofit organization based in New York, providing music and podcasting education to youth in New York City and Los Angeles. Explore the Beat is a collaboration with New York Music Month Extended Play, an initiative of the Mayor's Office of Media and Entertainment. And through the New York Music Month Extended Play initiative, we will be offering free music production and podcasting workshops through May of this year. So be sure to check out the amazing lineup of workshops on our website. I'm going to drop some links in the chat so you can check those out. There we go. Cool. Now today, we're going to be focusing on music composition and arrangement. And during this workshop, you will learn how to turn your sketches and ideas into full-fledged songs. And we'll go over how to create movement in your music and effectively take your listener through the journey of your arrangement decisions. Now, your teaching artist today will be Dale Anderson Lee, aka Dale Novella, a singer, songwriter, poet, and educator who performs and produces events in New York City area. A captivating performer, Novella has graced various stages in both the US and Europe, including the Bitter End, the Bowery Poetry Club, and is a regular at So Far Sounds. She uses her love of music to educate youth in social justice and the arts. Now, if you have any questions at any point in time, or if you're experiencing any technical issues, feel free to send me a private chat. We're also going to have some time at the end for questions if you want to hold on to them then. But other than that, enjoy the workshop and take it away.
All right. Thank you for that, Sarah. Hello, everyone. It's nice to see you, or your avatar, or your name. Thank you for coming. Once again, I am Dale Novella. I'm a teaching artist with Building Beats, and I've been with Building Beats for a couple years. I also work with a few other organizations in New York. I released my EP. I'm saying all this stuff, and y'all just heard my bio. It makes no sense. So the first thing, actually, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. Today, I will be demonstrating in Logic Pro. I might bounce back and forth. I might bounce over to Soundtrap, which is an online program that Building Beats likes to use. And I usually do these workshops in Soundtrap because there's usually no sound complications because it's online already. Whereas when you're using outside programs with Zoom, it can get a little tricky. So this is a beat I actually came up with today. Like I was just working on it, wanting to show y'all like a little sketch that was in my head. And I'll play it and then talk about a little bit of the inspiration I had to make the beat. And of course, this is unfinished because we're going to go in through that journey together.
I'm walking the 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 I'm walking the
All right, I'll stop there. And I apologize if it was a little glitchy. It was glitchy on my end, which was disappointing, but I hope y'all could hear everything. So going from my inspiration for the beat, let's start with this track that says Dembo, which is actually claps. This is the the instrument I used. I try to make sure every track is a different instrument or a different sound. It's easier for mixing later on, at least for me. But there are other ways that you can do it, and we don't really have to go through that because this beginning part is more about inspiration, right? So going into our edit window, you'll see these are claps, right? And I have 2 different claps here. And I was thinking about how I felt about today. I was a little nervous, not gonna lie. And I felt like my heart was going like this. So I'm from the South, and we have a thing called, or the South in the United States. I know some people aren't in the United States. So in the South in the United States, we have a thing called a soul clap, and that's what it is: 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. And so I was like, okay, that's probably how my heart sounds. So that's gonna be like the basis of my beat. And then I added like a second clap sound. I'll solo this. Okay, so that's where we're starting with the claps. And I just wanted to add like a couple other flourishes, and I didn't want the claps to have the same exact sound with both rhythms, just because I felt like that was good. I went by my feeling. And then we have our kick, I'm sorry. And I used the Atlanta drum kit. I wanted it to be more of a dance beat. Now, because we were doing the soul clap, and that's usually in soul music, and you hear it in disco and funk. So it's like something that gets you going because you want to dance. Now, typically with dance music, you have a 4 on the floor. So there's a kick on the 1, 2, 3, 4. I thought it might be kind of cool if it was more like a heartbeat. It's not exactly a heartbeat. I'll solo it, and then I'm going to turn in my loop cycle, which I can't even see on my screen. Where did my loop cycle go? Oh well, I'll just stop it when I don't want to play it anymore. So kind of like a heartbeat, not exactly like a heartbeat, but that was the inspiration behind it, right? With my teaching artist work, all of my teaching artist work, whether I'm teaching music, I also teach wellness, I teach yoga. I try to concentrate on connecting to self and how you're feeling in the moment, and using that to inspire whatever you're creating right now, even if that's a yoga sequence. Like, just breathe through it. But also going by your own culture, right? Or your own background, however you define that, whoever raised you, right? And the smell of Tide could raise you if that's what you always used, right? So making a beat or creating a lyric that relates back to you and where you're from is like a big part of my process and how I teach. So that's why I keep talking about like how I was feeling and my cultural heritage. So this next track is Crash. It's a crash. It's and a cymbal hit. And actually, in my process, I usually save the crashes for last. I'm not the best drum programmer, so what I end up doing is I make a simple beat and I keep listening to it over and over again and adding little flourishes. So this time I actually I came up with the idea for the crash pretty early, but I usually just like play it, like adding a crash wherever I think is appropriate once I have everything done. So I did it a little backwards for y'all from my normal process. And there are 2. One's a little louder than the other. One's a little more tinny. So there's a ride and there's a crash, and it's the same kit that I used for the kick, but once again on a different track because that's just what's easier for me. I'm not sure if I'm stuck. I'm stuck on my screen, but hopefully you can still see me. Okay, I saw a couple people nod. And then from there, I thought about sounds that like make me calm. So strings, I love strings in general. So that's why I picked the strings. So that was like 16 measures of the string part that I decided on in C major, starting with that C major chord, the 1, the 3, the 5, then I'm actually don't know exactly which, like in proper music theory term analogy, I'm like lacking on that. So I apologize for those of y'all who are like, "Oh, I know what chords those are." Um I like know enough music theory to like know what people are talking about when they're talking about it around me and to try to replicate it. But sometimes I'm like, when people ask me to talk about it afterward. So excuse me. Um, but yeah. So the first, I guess, 4 chords that are played. So we start with C, this is the 5th, go up to the 5th chord in the C major key. And then I believe this is 6 here. And then we return back to the root or the tonic. And then when we get to 11, I like returning back to the original, just because it sounds familiar and it gives it a rhythm, even if there's not a lot of rhythm in whatever you're producing. And the only thing is different with the next 4 chord progressions is, I believe, this 3rd chord at measure 15. Maybe it's not. Maybe I tricked myself and I changed it back. No, it's the 4th chord. So the 4th chord is different than the first one. And I just wanted to give it um instead of a return to the beginning, kind of like a going on your journey. We're continuing on to something new. But of course, the whole process repeats. Now, I decided to add a break instead of going to, like, I like adding more instrumentation as opposed to taking away when I'm going from section to section. But I did have a break here where there's a crash
I'm walking the
and then the vocal sample. The vocal sample is an Apple loop. I don't actually suggest using the stock sounds if you're planning on like publishing, if you're in a situation like this where you're in a workshop or you're just like playing around and you're playing around or and trying to like come up with something new, then using stock sounds, specifically samples, is fine. But if when you're in the process of uh I know I want to monetize this and put this out into the world, that might not be the best thing because that one sample might be in several people's songs. And then you'll get copyright claim on your song that's original, even though Apple Loop. So this is a program that is specific to Apple products. It's only on Mac. Um, and this is called Logic. It's like the big brother of GarageBand. So you can do a lot more with this program, a lot more mixing. Like you can mix your whole project in this, where in GarageBand, you could, but maybe not. So when I say Apple Loop, I mean it's a sample that's specific to Apple products. Yeah. And yeah, so a lot of people use them and you just want to steer away from them. If I decide to like continue making this beat and try to put it out in the world, I might re-record the sample myself and just put effects so that I sound more like the original sample, but uh it would it wouldn't pop up as someone else's song who might be using the sample in a similar way. So we've gone through all these tracks. Now, sequencing wise or arrangement wise, it kind of seems very loose. Um, so we're gonna start just like counting out everything and seeing if there already are different parts to the song, right? So let's see. I'm gonna play.
walk in the I 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 walk in the
All right. So, and in the chat says I'm using Machine, Serato Studio, wean myself off Ableton. You know, there's nothing wrong with Ableton. You can do all of those. Just as far as which digital audio workstation you're using, pick the one that you feel most comfortable with. Don't feel like you have to like upgrade or downgrade or whatever. It just depends on whatever you feel like you're making the best music with. But congratulations for trying something new. Um, yeah. So let's see. So we have a 2-measure intro, right? And then we have about, I still don't see where my cycle went. Let's see. Oh, it's just, okay, there it is. It's like, where did this thing go? So let's count out 16 measures or 16 bars if you're into hip hop. So this can be like a verse, right? And then starting after this little break, I would say that's a hook. It's only 8 measures. And then right after that, we have another 16 measure loop. Question in the chat: what are the greatest recommendations for iPad when it comes to making music and mixing it with vocals? With iPad, I mean, GarageBand is fine, and there's a lot of tutorials like on YouTube with that. I'm actually trying to get better at it because I have like a really nice iPad. And you can do a lot of the same things. You can't, it drives me insane you can't bounce off to waves, but you know. And yeah, bars tend hip hop rappers tend to call measures bars, but also saying like, "Oh, I got bars," like their lyrics are so great, but measures, bars, it's the same thing. All right, so we have our 2-measure intro. We have 16 measure verse. Like the first verse is usually a lot less like thick musically than the second verse. We have a thin chorus right now. Hopefully, I want to thicken that up, and we can do that a couple different ways. And then we have a second verse, and then we just have blank space. So let's leave the first part alone and just talk about this chorus. I'm going to whittle this down to 8 measures again. So this is what it sounds like right now.
I walk in the 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 I walk in the
So the first time the chorus comes in, it doesn't have to be super complicated. You want your chorus / hook, you can also call it the hook, to be like the fleshiest part of the composition, right? The part that really sucks everyone in, the part that has musically is usually the one that has the most going on. Lyrically, usually your hook is catchy, it's simple. It might just be one phrase that's repeated over and over again, or it might be like a couplet. That's how I like teaching how to write a hook. Just come up with 2 lines that rhyme. They don't have to be really long. Just, it can be, 5 syllables. And then you put it over the beat and you just repeat it over and over again. So technically, we could leave this the way it is, right? For the first hook. So I'm going to push my loop cycle back to after the second chorus, and I'm going to copy all of these vocal stabs. Let's call them stabs. I'm also going to place them a little earlier than they were. And we'll see how that sounds as they come in. So for the second hook, let's see. There are a couple different ways we can make it sound thicker, right? With the strings, me personally, I like layering strings. So that's one thing we can do. Copy the string track, and we're going to change the sound a little bit. But I'm going to highlight 4 of my string parts, 4 regions of my strings, and I'm going to press Option and just drag them down. When you're making music, digitally, try to learn as many shortcuts as possible just so that it goes by quicker. And the question in the chat is, do harmonies come first or drum beats? That's really up to you. I think it's easier to start with drums because it keeps you on tempo. Like if you're more comfortable with harmonies or chordal instruments, then you can start with that and record to a click. For me personally, drums kind of set the tone and set where I'm going with the beat in general. But once again, I'm also a wellness professional, so sometimes I record meditations and then I start with more like a droning sound. So it might just be one chord, like the C major chord, going for 8 whole minutes, and then I add a bunch of stuff on depending on what I want my students in that class to feel. But it's up to you. You can try both ways, and whatever feels best, stick with that. So we still have it on smart strings. This particular instrument is in GarageBand and in Logic. It's like my favorite string sound in this program. It is the most basic for whatever reason. I'm just like, I'm pretty married to it. But let's find maybe like a synth sound that is very ambient. That's personally what I like to do. And we'll solo it and see how it sounds with everything else. We also want it to go, we don't want it to be too much in the forefront. We're not going to get into mixing too much here. But if you already know you're just adding something so that the section sounds a little more full, you can just bring the volume down. There's plenty of other ways you can do this, but just for right now, just take that volume fader a little bit down. Okay, so I'm gonna stop that because for me, that sounds a little too much like an organ. And I don't want a super harsh sounds coming through. Let's see how it sounds with string. Okay, so nice and subtle is just gonna make it sound a little thicker. I turn the loop cycle off and listen to it again. So yeah, nice and subtle. And it's still there. I'm also gonna copy this crash. So I'm holding down my Option and dragging this over so that it hits on the one right when the new string parts or the synth comes in. A lot of just creating your beat or creating your sections is starting with your scratch idea, your initial, maybe like you have 4 tracks, and then listening to it over and over again and being like, maybe this, maybe that, and playing with it and being just being okay with play. It's play. Even though for me, music is a serious matter, it's still feel free to have fun. All right, so let's say we want to, or I personally would like to double our chorus. So I'm going to copy all of this and drag it back. And I also think it might be cool to add another drum part to this chorus. So we're doubling the chorus. And I'm going to actually do a drummer track just so we can like see how that works in Logic. And this also is true in GarageBand. Technically, this is adding samples, but one thing I do like about it is that it turns into MIDI. So we have our loop cycle on, so we're going to hear our repeated chorus over and over again, and we're going to play around with the sounds until we find something that we like. And we have presets here, but I'm just going to put that there. Ooh. So you have different like genres you can choose. Let's do roots brush, change drummer. I don't want it to be loud. I want it to be soft. So drag here. And it can stay complex. Maybe we add a shaker. And not a lot of fills. Let's see how that sounds so far. Oop. And it added it in a place that I didn't want it. So I have to drag it down. And I can't really hear it that well. And you can see the audio changing, and you can also hear it. So let's go back and hear our sounds of everything else. Doesn't sound that bad, but let's back it up. Let's leave it there for now. I'm going to show y'all how to turn that what looks like audio into MIDI. So all we're going to do is create a new track. We're going to make sure it's a software instrument. We're going to choose our instrument. So it says Bluebird Ridge electric drum kit. Maybe it's not an electric drum kit. Maybe it's in just regular drum kit. Yep. No, Blue Ridge. All right, and then we're gonna drag this down, and now it's MIDI. So now we can go in and change as much as we like and be like, we can change per measure if we want. I don't know if you can do that, even though there is a drummer option in GarageBand. I don't remember if you can do that in GarageBand, but it definitely works in Logic. And is the latest version of Logic. If you have a cracked Logic, then I'm sorry, I don't know what to tell you. um, and I'm gonna delete that original one because we can tailor it a little bit more than, you know. So that's our second book. Also, just trying to keep your drums together, like your different sections, keeping them all together. Different instruments, not sections. Okay, so as you see, all these there are no instruments at this part, right? And that kind of is I wouldn't say it's purposeful. I really just like looped it out or copied and pasted so that I would have like a big section to work with y'all. But that is dropping out all of your main instruments is something called a break. Or maybe some of y'all heard like these are the breaks. Like it's where everything drops out except for the bass and the drums. We don't have any bass in this song, but what we can do is we can push these strings back a few measures and then see how that sounds when it drops out. Okay. So it sounds pretty cool. I'm gonna once again copy my crashes, pull them back. I want them a couple other places too. But we don't have to be super specific. I'm also gonna copy some of my vocal samples and copied on the wrong track. So make sure you're copying where you want it to be, because clearly I'm not doing that. And I think this is just like a break. So this is another section of the song. This is really like just playing around and hearing what would sound good, this part. Giving the listener literally a break. That's a little offbeat. I'll fix that right quick. And then I'm just going to have it repeat. On tempo. And for our break, just to give it like a completely different feel, we can like keep this going. You can also, what I'm hearing is like having a different string part as well. Your break, or if you're thinking more of lyrics and main melody, it would be a bridge where it's something that sounds different but connects the chorus to the third verse or the ending chorus, depending on how you think the song should end. That's up to you, right? So far, we've kind of fleshed this out a little bit. Let's just go back to the second chorus.
walk in the I walk in the I walk in the
So those still come in a little bit too early. And we have to start thinking about how we're going to end our track, right? So at this point in the songwriting process, if you're, or at least the composition process, you kind of like know what you want your audience to feel and sit back and think about that. Like, how do I want my audience to feel? How can I end the song? What else do I need to add to make sure that they get that feeling? If it's more harmonies, or if it's like more percussion, or maybe you need more calming, maybe you need less. This would be when you kind of just start saying, okay, what does it need, and what is my audience gonna need in order to get the full experience. I need more drums, at least more drum regions, which I think I might have changed my length of my regions. So I'm just gonna loop them to make sure I get the right length or the right sound.
I walk in the 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 I walk in the
Okay. And another thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna copy this part just to finish out our break.
I walk in the I walk in the I walk in the I walk in the
And another thing that I like to do, just to like, if it's a dancier song, I just dragged all these out and now I'm gonna not drag them out. Is take one of the drum patterns that you've been using, something that maybe was continuous throughout the song, and simplify it a little bit. So we can do that with kick's already pretty simple. But let's say we do that with our clap, because that's been continuous throughout, right? So to give, and higher frequencies can wear out the ear a little bit more. So if you're going to play around and have like something coming in and out constantly, then you might want it to be one of your higher frequenced sounds, whether that's a synth or a bell, or just because it tires out the ear a little bit more. So instead of a soul clap, and maybe we get rid of the second snap or the second line and just have it mimic. And we'll see how that sounds. It's still a lot. I'm gonna take one more out. In comparison to the last one.
I walk in the I walk in the I walk in the I walk in the
I want it to feel really slow. And you can do that not by changing the tempo, but by changing up the drum pattern. Okay. And then we have I Like That. And I just zoomed in because I pressed Option before I needed to press Option. All right, so I'm gonna select these and copy paste for a little while. We'll see how it feels. All right, so we're gonna bring everything from the chorus back Maybe not the vocal samples. My screen is blurry. No, I'm not sure why. Maybe my internet's usually pretty good. So I'm not sure why that is happening. I do apologize for the blurriness. But right now I'm taking the acoustic guitar and the calming bells and I'm pasting them at the end. So even though those two showed up during what we were calling the chorus, we're going to see how it sounds at the end and then maybe have some kind of outro. And we have to copy all these. Another reason I like synths is because the the delay in synths is just automatically there. It's just built into what they are. And I always like that audio trail at the end of the song. So let's say I get to this point. Personally, I don't feel like I'm finished, but let's say this is another Dale in another universe, and that other universe Dale is like, oh, this is great. I'm done. We're gonna listen through, see how it feels, feel like looking for movement, seeing if like there's repetition and familiarity, but also still movement and exciting things happening throughout. And then maybe adding a couple like I don't want to say signature, like not featured, but like just like sporadic instruments throughout. That's when you could really play around and not take it seriously once you have like that core and you have your sections already mapped out. So 'cause right now we have an intro, 2 verses, 2 hooks, and a break and an outro that just naturally happened. So
walk in the I 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 walk in the
All right. So we could say we're done there, right? And then we'd go into mixing and hmm, yeah. I think the only thing I think I do want to have this drum pattern that we did with the drummer track that we created with that drummer track. I think I would like it in both choruses. Um but yeah, that's how you can take kind of like a sketch into like a full-fledged song. And then mixing would come next and then you can get really really in depth and make it sound really great. Um,
Just out of curiosity, if there's ever a point where you're kind of stuck in this process of mixing, like putting to not even mixing, but just like throwing together a song, like do you have advice for people? Like, do you just stop, like step away? Do you look to inspiration from other places? Like, what typically do you do?
I do stop. Like to stop and maybe not stop immediately, like a gradual stop. Like I might listen to the beat one more time and then ask myself, who does this already sound like? Like what artists come to mind when I hear this beat? And then I might go listen to them, right? Especially when I'm writing lyrics and I'm trying to come up with melodies, because melodies top lining, what they call top lining, is not my strong suit. I can make a beat, I can write some fire lyrics, but my melodies come very slow as far as like vocally. So I might be like, okay, this beat kind of sounds like it kind of reminds me of Prince. So I'll go and I'll just like listen to Purple Rain or whatever Prince song I feel like it sounds like. Um, or if I'm making more like a hip hop beat, like my husband is a rapper and he's more in the boom bop genre. So one band that he likes a lot is Run the Jewels. If I'm making a beat specifically for him, I might go listen to Run the Jewels and be like, okay, so this is how they did their hi-hats, or this is okay, you know. So you can stop and just listen to something else. like, and come back to it when you feel a little better.
Mhm.
Um, and it definitely flows better after you've taken some time off. Sometimes we just get too much in our head. I know I do that all the time and try to like make things perfect, but the process is actually never ending. So like, give yourself a break.
Very solid advice.
I see a question about making a beat for a song. Like if you already have your melody and your lyrics already done, and if you have a drum pattern in mind, try to bang out that drum pattern on your own. And if you know a guitarist or a pianist, collaborate. Like you always go further together, right? So make sure you're collaborating with other artists that you know. And if you know, I'm not the best with me personally, I'm not the best with chordal instruments. Like I can hear when things don't sound right together, but like as far as like my music theory, like I said, is not the best. So yeah, definitely collaborate with someone else and don't be afraid to like reach out and just be like, I need a pianist. I need a guitarist to help me come up with the music. And you can continue building mixing MIDI with audio. And yeah.
Well, I guess if that's it, I just want to thank everybody for joining us. I want to thank you for hosting this. Very lovely. Thank you so much. And also just want to say if you want to continue the conversation, we actually have a Discord set up for everybody. I'm going to drop the link for that. And also be sure to check up on any Explore the Beat workshops that are going to be coming up within the next couple of months. And then our recording of this should be up by
the end of this week, if not early next week, on our blog. So just keep an eye out for that. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.